Well, the PGA Tour staying in the state of Texas this week for the Valero Texas Open at TPC San Antonio coming up on the Golfbet Roundtable. We've got picks this week. We have tune-ups for some of these stars for Augusta. What do we got to see out of them for them to play well at the Masters? And how do you bet Ludvig Åberg this week, knowing that he is a massive favorite at Valero, who's also looking towards the Masters next week, guys? It's very easy to do that here on the Roundtable. But, Will, we got to pick some more winners this week, man.
We do need to pick some more winners this week. I don't know that I'm the guy to go to after last week. I believe I may have had some things to say about the guy that eventually won the tournament. So looking for a blank slate this week for the Valero, and we're going to try again.
Yeah, well, maybe you can give yourself a little credit for the win. Maybe you inspired Minwoo a little bit, pushed him beyond that break of struggling to actually win and getting in the winner's circle. Maybe he heard you. Maybe you inspired him.
Wait till you hear my pick this week, Will. Maybe you can anti-jinx him too. Let's talk about these stars, because I see 4 players on this list who you could call Masters guys, because Ludvig was second last year, Tommy Fleetwood was third last year, and Jordan Spieth and Hideki Matsuyama have both won. So I kind of want to tailor this conversation, not so much about these guys' odds right here. We know why they're the favorites, Will. But talking about them, what do we need to see from some of these favorites this week when we're looking at them at Augusta next week? You want to start with Spieth?
I actually want to start with Hideki, because I think that's really the roadmap of what guys have looked for recently. Hideki never played the Valero Texas Open until 2021. Then he finished T30, and then he went on to win the Masters the next week, and he's been back every year since, which is understandable. But that's kind of the barometer. I think if you're looking at these guys, how you address them for this week is probably a little different from what you're looking to get out of them if you're looking to bet them for the Masters next week. I think they're all kind of coming into this saying, I want a solid performance, want to feel good about my game. I want to build a little momentum. I don't necessarily need to be, winning this event or be in the top 5 to still feel good about my chances at the Masters. Certainly anything like that is going to help. Jordan Spieth won in 2021, that year that Hideki went from T30 to winning the Masters the following week. So, it's really what you're trying to avoid. You want your body to be fresh. You want to avoid, a 76 and a trunk slam, but it's one where you don't necessarily need everything to be firing on all cylinders right now, but you want to have some positive signs heading toward Magnolia Lane.
Yeah, well, I'm on the same page as you. I'm not looking for someone to come in and win this week and then tail them into a win in Masters week. That's not really going to happen. You want to look for someone that's not really having mental knocks, right? Like you said, like a big blow up 76 and they're slamming the trunk. Just something along the lines of it looks like something's off. You just want them, like you said, solid performance. Put down good marks on, across your game, off the tee, on the green. Put some good iron shots out there, but you want to just look out for the guys that are having really rough weeks. You don't want to tail someone off a rough week into the Masters. They all know Masters is next week. The mental side can really trickle in. So just looking for some calm, smooth performances. If you like someone for next week, you want to see them do that this week.
Chris, you may need to fact check me, but I think Trevor Immelman back in 2008, that's how far you got to go back to find a guy that missed the cut the week before and then went on to win the Masters the week after. So as Casey was saying, it's not necessarily what you're looking for, it's what you're looking to avoid, because it's going to be tough to really back anyone that misses the cut this week that seems out of sorts to find their game in that 3 or 4 day turnaround as they head toward Augusta.
You said 2008.
Yes.
2008.
I didn't think you were actually going to fact check me live, but I appreciate it.
Fact check you right now. This is a live show, guys. Trevor Immelman in 2008, before the Masters, he missed the cut at the Houston Open. So there you go. I don't know if it was the last time, but that did. They would take me probably hours to do that. It's easy to say you guys both are spot on. We don't need these guys to go through the roof this week. But what about Spieth? Because this guy has been an absolute mess when it comes to what do you think he's going to do the week before the Masters, and what does he actually do? Because his last 4 times at Augusta, Casey, he's gone miscut, T3, miscut, T4. And the week before at Valero or wherever else it was going to be, he's been as good as the top 10, and he's been a lot worse than that. Do you take any kind of stock into what Spieth's going to do this week?
I mean, the only stock I take there is that, like, good luck betting on golf, right? I mean, it's just brutal. And Spieth is the perfect microcosm of how it could be such a nightmare to try to bet on this sport. But it's tough with Spieth. I don't think I'd put too much stock in either way. I mean, again, like back to what Will and I said, if we see one of those big blow-ups, I'm not going to be all fired up about him going into Augusta. But he's just a tricky one to ride. It's kind of, yeah, there's statistics and some logic and some, trends you can go with, but Spieth's kind of a heart guy. You got to be in on it or not, and it could blow up in your face, but you want to ride the ride. So I'm not taking too much stock in what we see from Spieth this week, and either way, I don't think I'm tailing him too heavy into Augusta.
Yeah, I would say Spieth more than anyone else in the field next week leads in strokes gained pixie dust in terms of when he just gets on the grounds at Augusta National, things change for him. And you don't need as much of the form and the indicators that we might look for with other players. There's something about Augusta National and Jordan Spieth, as you said, Chris, it's not every year, but it's been a bunch of years to where he is able to, overperform expectations just by being back in that place where he won 10 years ago. There's going to be a lot of reminiscing for him certainly next week. And he'll look to try and build into that this week in San Antonio for sure.
Watch him shoot a couple of 64s this week and then just see what happens with the bettors next week, because that would be very Jordan Spieth. We know that Ludvig Åberg is the favorite this week, plus 1,200 odds to win. Let's look at some of his markets at DraftKings, guys. Is it me, or has there been very little talk not only about him this week, but in general, Will? We're talking about somebody who is the odds-on favorite here. He is the Scotty Scheffler role this week if the odds were plus 300. But what do you make of the lack of talk on Åberg? You think that's justified?
He is flying a little under the radar, especially for someone who won a signature event just a few weeks ago, has those Texas ties, having gone to Texas Tech. So the wind kicks up as it often does in hill country, he'll be pretty prepared. But you're right, he doesn't quite have the same cachet as some of the other guys that we've seen leading, the odds board at some of these recent tournaments, whether it's Scotty or Rory, but he's still one of the top 5 players in the world. He can win anywhere he tees it up. And Chris, I know you and I talked through on Key Stats yesterday, the importance of strokes gained approach when you're dissecting TPC San Antonio. And that feels like a Ludvig Åberg stat to me, right? I mean, he's so solid tee to green. So I'd be willing to get a little aggressive here. I'm maybe thinking top 5 plus 330. If you don't like him for the outright market, there is a few guys behind him in that plus 14, plus 1600 range among the contenders. But I feel like if he's going to contend, he's going to really give it a good shot heading into Sunday, and you're getting a pretty good return on the top 5.
Yeah, I wonder if that miscut at the players kind of helped put him under the radar, at least conversationally. Yeah. Like we said, obviously odds-on favorite going into the week, but it's been a bit inconsistent for him. There's been just times when you think this may be the year of Ludvig, and then there's times where he's just kind of not in the conversation on a certain week. So another one tricky to really hop in on. Well, I like what you said there, that if he's going to be in the mix, I think he's going to be strongly in the mix. I don't think he flirts with the top 10 or, floats around the top 20. If he's playing well and is in the mix, I really like him up there. I feel more comfortable at the top 10, plus 170. Not a great, shoot there to win you some money, but just for safekeeping before we lose a bunch of money on Augusta, maybe go top 10 here for Valero.
I was just gonna say, Casey, didn't you go like minus 200 on Scheffler for a top 20 that barely hit?
Scotty Scheffler's a completely different conversation when it comes for me. That's just a different animal. It's a different sport we're talking.
So you don't want to lay minus 120 on a Ludvig top 20.
I'll flirt with the top 10 just to make a little more money. Top 20 minus 120. I don't know. We're just getting a little boring. I'll flirt with the top 10 plus 170 on Ludvig.
There's something about the plus money returns on these place markets where you just feel like it's a little bit easier to try and allocate units and build things that way.
Totally.
Let's stay with some props here. Casey, I have been so high on this guy that you like this week. Why do you like Ben Griffin for a top 10?
Well, Ben Griffin's one of these guys coming into the week that he's got to win to play Augusta. He's very aware of it. He's already dropped some jokes on Twitter, kind of leading into it. Past couple winners, including Minwoo last week, both had flirted with the idea of not really playing that week. So Ben Griffin fired off a tweet saying he's not sure if he's playing this week. He knows he's playing this week. He's just trying to catch some of that I'm not sure if I'm playing juju. He's been playing really well. It's been a bit inconsistent at times, but overall, just kind of eye test watching him. It's been really solid performances from Ben Griffin. And entering this week, we have our course fit scores on the PGA Tour website. Ben Griffin is second in the field for course fit this week. Looks really strong for a good performance at TPC San Antonio. Like I said, he knows he's got to win this week to get into Augusta, and I think he makes a real good effort at that. I'm not fully sold yet that he's ready to break through to that winner's circle. So let's get a little, still get some odds at plus 500 him making the top 10, but we're not fully locked into that win yet.
What do we think Ben Griffin's Whoop recovery score is these days? He has been playing. The last time he skipped a week, I think it was before Casey joined the Golfbet team. 13 weeks in a row. Mm-hmm. This is a staggering number. No one's played more than 16 since I think 2003. So he's played every week since Sony, and that includes last week. I wonder about the emotional hangover, let alone the physical, running out of gas of playing for 3 straight months. But it seemed like he thought on Sunday that he had done enough to make the Masters, shooting a final round 65 in Houston. Turns out he came up 1 shot short, finished 51, just a fraction of a couple points behind Michael Kim for that top 50 spot to get into the Masters. I wonder, I appreciate a good Twitter joke as much as the next guy, but I wonder if there's a little bit of a letdown this week, having come so close and just not being able to get it done, let alone now just racking up as many miles as he has since January.
Will, we were looking at these key metrics, the stats on Monday. Did I convince you that Gary Woodland was a good bet?
You may have. He was already on the short list for sure, but those numbers that we saw in the strokes gained categories definitely peaked in the right direction. And now we shift the scene to San Antonio, where Woodland has finished T6 and T8 in his last 2 starts at the Valero. There's a lot to like there. He's in that plus 5,000, plus 5,500 range for the outright, but I like him here at plus 500 for a top 10, coming off of last week where he nearly got in that playoff with Scotty Scheffler and Min Woo Lee, just torching that course on Sunday, shooting a 62 to tie the course record. He's got the game, the tee to green, ball striking that you would expect, certainly out of a U.S. Open champion. But this is a recipe for success in my mind for Gary Woodland, who seems healthy, he seems confident, he seems happy, and I really think plus 500 now for a top 10. Again, he's in that mix. You feel like he's a guy that would be in the Masters, but that 5-year exemption from winning it at Pebble Beach in 2019 is up. So he's not yet in the Masters, has that extra incentive to play for this week.
You guys went a little more risky with your top 10 picks. I am going to go to a top 20, and a guy I know you like a lot too, Will. You've got Bud Cauley, I believe, as your long shot. I like him as a top 20 for plus 220. Now, we know how great he's been. He might be the hottest player on tour who has not won in 2025. A T6 at the Players, a T4 at the Valspar a few weeks ago. And it just seems like all of a sudden this guy he had the devastating crash that happened to him a while ago. We didn't know what his future looked like. And now we're talking about somebody who really feels like a top 20 to me this week. Seems like nothing because his stats also pop in this, Will. The stats we were talking about, he's great in par 4 scoring. I believe he's 8th on tour in par 4 scoring, a key stat metric. And he's 20th in strokes gained approach. What's not to love?
Yeah, I think when I looked at Bud Cauley, there's just not really a weakness in his game or in the stat line right now. He's 5th in total strokes gained on PGA Tour for the season. So that speaks to your point of he really is among the best players in 2025 without a win, but 13th tee to green, 20th on approach. There's not really a glaring issue that you point to and say, well, he's got to overcome X, Y, and Z. He's been very solid. Certainly those last couple of weeks playing in Florida, he really spiked. So I'm with you. I like him as a long shot in the outright market. I know he hasn't won on the PGA Tour. Maybe I'm going against what I said last week, but certainly a plus 220 on a top 20. I'm in for this one with Bud Cauley.
All right, let's get into some winner picks here. Casey, everyone's picking this guy.
Hard not to. Hard not to. Mr. Valero. He's my new Mr. Valero. I know that was Charlie Hoffman for quite a long time. This is Corey Connors' turn. He won this first win 2019 as a Monday qualifier. Did it again in 2023. Those are his only 2 tour wins have come here. So we know the comfortability's there. You combine that with the fact that Corey Connors is playing some exceptional golf right now. He enters the week with 3 straight top 10 finishes, one of those coming at the Players. And these finishes have been 4-round consistent performances. It's not like, he dipped down for a 62 one day and that helped him creep up into a top 10. He's just been putting together round after round after round. Seems like he's flirting with the lead at some point every week. But with the 3 straight top 10 finishes, with success here at this course, not only that, he does a really good job kind of gearing himself up for Masters. He's a consistent Masters performer as well. I really like Connors to do it again this week. I know, like you said, it's not the boldest pick with 2 recent wins here and one of the favorites coming in, but I just think it really blends nicely for him to do it again and go 3 wins out of 3 wins here at TPC San Antonio.
Do we think when he won for the second time, did they give him another pair of boots, or is he asked to reuse the same boots for the winners?
He should have asked.
Should.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Maybe you give back a left boot and you get a new left boot, and then you have 2 boots, and then who knows what happens at 3? But that's an interesting thought. Will.
You to find out, right?
Yeah.
This will be good.
All right, Will. What do you like about Keegan Bradley this week? The fact that he's a captain in the Ryder Cup doesn't not distracted by anything?
No, he hasn't been distracted through the first 3 months. Oh, captain, my captain. There's a lot to like here of what Keegan's doing inside the ropes. Bethpage is a long way away, but it seems to have buoyed him. You go back to that win at the BMW last year that they caught a lot of people off guard, but he's really built on that momentum into this year. He's top 20 in strokes gained tee to green, top 25 on approach. So those are, again, 2 of the key metrics when you look to break down the Oaks course at TPC San Antonio. You really need to be trustworthy with iron in hand, and this is a course where he's had some success. He's played on and off over the years, and so it's a place that he knows pretty well. But again, another one of those players that's looking towards the Masters next week, but is very much going to be focused on this week, especially if he plays his way into contention. And I just think sitting there at plus 2,500, we don't really have, as you said, the clear favorite is Ludvig, but he's not that far ahead of the pack, and so you have this really strong group in the 5 or 6 players closest to Ludvig on the odds board. I think Keegan really shines for me out of that group.
Yeah, I think there is only 6 players.
You don't think he's really distracted by the captaincy, and even on the flip side, I think he's kind of motivated by it. I think he's really driven right now to give himself the opportunity to be a playing captain and pick himself. And I think the way Keegan's built, he wants to really earn that, not kind of scrape in and have it be controversial that he picked it, but there were some good, arguments. So guy that wants to go out there and fight for a win, and that's something that could really help push the opinion to help his side of wanting to add himself to the team if that's a road he wants to go down.
Yeah, I think he originally said, guys, that he wants to be in that top 6. He doesn't want to have to pick himself. You get a victory here, whether it's this week or somewhere, he's probably going to be in the top 6 if he keeps playing well enough. So yeah, that's something interesting to look at as well. Okay. Last week I picked a winner, guys, and this week it has made me change my mind. Will's laughing on Tommy Fleetwood. Will, what have I been saying about Tommy Fleetwood for 2 years?
Oh man, this is just coming out of the clouds for you, Reese. Wow, what a turnaround on the Englishman.
I did not necessarily disagree with you last week when you said we don't know if Min was ready to win. I just had a feeling that he could do it. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, that he could do it. So why can we not think the same thing about Tommy Fleetwood just because he's older and been around a lot longer? I think if he's going to do it, it's going to be at a place that's going to be unassuming because it's before the Masters. People are looking ahead to the Masters. This course, statistically, we keep talking about these stats, fits his eye perfect. He's a ball striker. He's an iron player. He's great on those par 4s. He played well here last year in his only appearance. If stars are going to align, it's going to be a week like this. So who am I to say Tommy Fleetwood will never win on the PGA Tour? If he can do it, he'll do it this week, and I'm going 2 in a row, guys.
Hey, you got to ride the hot hand. I will say, you think back to some of his close calls. One of them was at the Canadian Open, which was right before a major when he lost that playoff to Nick Taylor. And also, just for the record, as we go back to the Minwoo thing, as I'm continuing to eat crow, he didn't exactly close out a 5-shot lead there, guys, right? Some of what I was saying was not exactly totally out of bounds. The win's a win, credit to Minwoo, but go on.
The funny thing about that, Casey, the funny thing was Minwoo tried to prove Will right.
He tried.
He made his best efforts there a bit at the end. That drive on 16, I know Will was sitting there going, here it comes. But he managed to lock in and fill it out. I like this play by Will. I like this play by Chris. It's kind of like a Will Gray hedge. He's watching Will in the moment right now eat all this crow and Minwoo. Chris sat there for a minute and say, who are my worst guys? Who's the guy I could eat crow on? Fleetwood. Let's get ahead of this. Bet it. So I like this play, Chris.
I would be lying if I said it was not a secondary motive for why I picked Tommy Fleetwood. We have a fantastic week of golf coming up at TPC San Antonio this week. Make sure you're watching Golf Channel on Thursday and Friday, and then the big one Saturday on NBC, 3:30 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Sunday, 2:30 to 6 p.m. Will, we have a very good field this week, and we're hoping for a lot of action this weekend.
For sure. I know a couple Gators in the field. Might be making a trip across town to see the Final Four Saturday night after action concludes. Who's to say who they're rooting for? I don't know, but it should be a fun weekend down in the Riverwalk for sure.
Some awesome San Antonio parlays on deck for everybody. Golf, basketball, cross them over.
Can't wait to see it all week, and good luck to everybody on your picks this week for the Valero Texas Open.